is Michelle, and I've lost 160 pounds while managing life in my 50s, a home, a family, a job, and all without spending one day in a gym. How did I do it? No sweat. Today, I'm going to show you how I make variations on family dinners to feed my family to meet the nutritional values that I need to continue losing weight for myself. Today's menu, Birria ribs. For today's recipe, I'm going to let my crock pot do a lot of the work for me. And whenever I use my crock pot, I actually start the night before. Let me show you what I've got going in here. Well, first of all, the insert, right? It comes out for a reason. This was in my refrigerator overnight. And what I have in here is my ribs. I think Birria is better known as being a beef type of a dish, but pork ribs were on sale. You can use pork, chicken, whatever you want. I'm using pork today. And what I did yesterday in order to prepare for today was I pre-cut the ribs into individual pieces so that they will cook more quickly today, and I seasoned them. The basic seasoning for any Mexican dishes are going to be, of course, garlic and onion for everything. And for just about every Mexican dish that I make, this is my holy trinity. Cumin, essential. Paprika, smoked paprika, if you can find it. And a little cayenne or chili pepper. Those are the three that for me really set it off with that specific Mexican taste. And of course you're going to want to use salt and pepper to taste. Aside from the salt and pepper, wait a minute, backtrack. There's also some fresh cilantro that I mixed in here yesterday. And so what I did was with those seasonings and the fresh cilantro, let me see if I can get this where you can see it. I went ahead and I tossed the ribs in them. I placed them in the crock pot insert, left it in the refrigerator overnight. And this is really going to permeate the meat and give it a really slow roasted taste, even though it's just easy peasy in the crock pot dish. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is adapting this recipe for me. For my family, like I said, pork ribs were on sale, so I bought a bunch of them. But I did some Googling this morning. Pork ribs, let's get a big fatty one here. Look at that. Look at all that fat. For a 4-ounce serving, according to Google, of pork ribs, 329 calories, with 51% of those calories being fat. Now that was by Google. When I went into my calorie tracker app, it actually listed it at 450 calories for a 4-ounce serving. So, I mean, that's heavy duty. The other stats, 33 grams protein, 34.4 grams fat, 0 carbs, of course. So how am I going to eat ribs when I'm on a 1,200 calorie a day deficit diet, meaning that each of my meals really needs to be as close to 300 calories as possible. I'm no longer close to 300 pounds, thank God. Without, how am I going to do this? Okay, well, here's how I made a little variation for me. For my family, I've got the ribs. I picked up a lean center cut pork loin, and the stats on that cut of meat are for 4 ounces, 200 calories. And on my app, 113. So I'll have to Google a little more to see what the actual true calories were. Unfortunately, I didn't save the packaging. 41 grams protein, 0.9 grams of fat compared to 34.4 grams of fat. So that's the calorie reduction right there, is the reduction in the fat in this lean center cut pork loin. I'm going to lay all of their fatty ribs at the bottom of the pan and put my lean cuts of meat up towards the top so that all their fat is not dripping into my meat. The crock pot goes back into the insert. And now let's talk about Birria sauce. Birria sauce, well, first of all, Birria is a relatively new recipe coming out of Mexico. It's not something that my grandma ever made. So I had to actually look it up and watch a couple videos myself and see what it's all about. And what it appears to me is that it's just a basic red sauce but it's, prepared in a different way, and plated in a different way as well. You could go and soak your dried chilies and put them in the blender with onion and garlic, and too many dishes. Not going to do that here. Red enchilada sauce. Okay, so I'm going to just make it very easy on myself. Red enchilada sauce, and trust me, once you've got all the seasonings in here overnight like this, marinating into the meat, trick number one, this is not going to taste like canned sauce once it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and just pour that in and cover my meat. And then trick number two. Okay, I wasn't sure about sharing this because I thought I might get a couple people that go, ew, whatever. But I've been doing it for years. No one has died. Okay, no one's died. No botulism, no food poisoning, no nothing. Okay, think along the lines of sourdough starters, right? It's the big trend. Everybody's making sourdough. You need a sourdough starter. It sits in your fridge, or I don't know. I don't do it, but it sits there forever, and you just keep using some out of it, and but you leave the mass there. I do that with my sauces when I make things in the crock pot. The last time I made a red sauce Mexican dish, it was chili Colorado. And everybody takes out the big chunks of the great roast that's in there, and enjoys their chili Colorado. And when all is said and done and everybody's been served, you're left with a little bit of sauce. What I do is, when I clean up at the end of the night, I take the sauce that's left over, I strain out any residual pieces of meat, I put it in the freezer bag and I freeze it, and then I take it out and thaw it in the fridge safely, and I add it to the next can that I'm going to use. And that way I've always got a base going of tried and true, tested sauce. I do this for red sauce and green sauce in my Mexican dishes, that you can use to amplify. It's already got the meat juices cooked in from the chili Colorado that I made the other day, which was based on a starter for chicken enchiladas that I made, a few weeks before that, or whatever. So it's intergenerational reuse of the sauces, preserved by keeping them in the freezer, but carrying all that slow roasted goodness over and over and over. Think about it along the lines of an all-day baked spaghetti sauce at your fingertips in your freezer, able to defrost and pour right in. So that's what I do, and that's a tip. Follow it or not, just don't ooh it, because it's good, trust me. And with that, I'm ready to set my crock pot and then go do other things for a while. I do plan to come back and give you the demo on the sides that I'm going to be making with this, as well as coming back for the finishing off of and the plating of this. But for now, I'm actually going to set this one on high because I don't want them to fall off the bones. I'm going to be finishing it up in the oven later. So I'm going to set it on high for 4 hours, come back in and check on it. And until then, the day is mine. Okay, we are just about at the halfway point on the crock pot. I had set it for 4 hours on high. We're about 2 hours in. And so I'm going to go ahead and take a peek, check on things, and kind of rearrange the ribs a little bit. The house smells really good. It smells so good. Okay, I'm just going to take these few off the top here, and I think I might actually need a second plate. And as I'm fishing down to the bottom, I do need a second plate. Hold, please. Here we go. I'm getting the ones out from the bottom here. What I'm going to do is those that I just took out right there from the top, I'm going to put in the bottom. And these that I'm fishing out of the bottom, where they're fully submerged, or they've been fully submerged in the birria sauce. I'm told I don't pronounce that correctly. I apologize. I just can't get my mind around it for some reason. Okay, so These were fully submerged in the sauce down at the bottom. So what I'm gonna do, they had their turn, they got their bath. Now it's these guys' turn. I'm going to put these guys in the bottom and let these guys now have a turn to be fully submerged. And by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm creating an even taste and texture among the various cuts of rib that are in here. Let it go the remaining 2 hours and we can get started on our sides now. Okay, while the birria is in the crock pot going, I'm going to get started on the sides that I'm going to be serving for. I'm going to be making Mexican rice for my family using regular long grain white rice, right? There's a million videos out there on how to do it. It's not low carb, it's not diet, but it's for my family. So if you want to know how to make real Mexican rice, I'm sure you can Google it and find out. I'm not going to show it here. Now it's done. So here it is. Here is the regular Mexican rice for my family at, I think what we ended up at 220 calories per cup, 220, 240 calories per cup as a side dish for my family. But during the same time, my Mexican style cauliflower rice also became done. And so I wanted to take a quick minute to show you this with the video on how to cook it being up on my YouTube page. I encourage you to do that, because why have 220 calories per cup as your side, not even your main entree, when you could have 28? It's little cuts like that that are going to make this plate something that I can eat and still enjoy. And there you have it. Side dish number 1 for me. Side dish number 2 for them. Let's get started. Well, number 1 for me, number 1 for them. Let's get started on side dish number 2, which is going to be an elote, Mexican elote bake. It's a recipe that I actually developed for myself as a diet recipe, and my family loves it. And we're going to get started with that in just a minute. Let me get this cleaned up. Okay, now that we've got our first side dish for the night completed, it's time to start on side dish number 2. This is what I call my elote bake. Okay, first of all, what is elote? Elote is Mexican street corn. You'll see it at fairs and things like that. It's supposed to be, and it's best when it is a whole ear of corn that has been pre-boiled, but then they bring it out to the fair, fire roast it. They pull the stalks down, fire roast it, brush it with crema, which substituted here in the States is quite often mayonnaise. And then, brush it with lime first, excuse me. Brush it with the crema or the mayonnaise here in the States. Sprinkle it over with Mexican crumbling cheese, and then sprinkle it with chili powder, and it is delicious. We're going to get started. There's just a little microsecond of it here that happens at the stove, so this is very basic. I'm just going to go ahead and put my cauliflower into my pan here. I haven't turned my heat on yet. I'm cooking for my whole family, so 12 ounces. I have 2 packages. I probably should have just bought a bigger package because, like I said, my family loves this too. And a whole can of corn, juice and all, throwing it in, because what we're going to do right here is we're just going to parboil to thaw and very, very slightly cook the cauliflower. But then as soon as it's just cooked through enough, we're going to strain it and let it sit in the strainer for a while to let it kind of significantly dry before we go on with the rest of the recipe. So I'm going to add a little bit of water, and to allow for there to be a little bit of flavor cooked in with it as it's cooking. Normally, I would just put a splash of lime in and some salt, just to kind of boost the base flavor of the cauliflower. But I mentioned earlier, I found this cilantro lime stuff at Dollar Tree, and I love it. So I'm going to use this in replace of both the lime and the salt, and season with this. And the water, like I said, is going to be drained out. This is just to give it a little bit of infiltration of the flavor, especially into the cauliflower florets. And I'm going to just set it on high, bring it to a boil, and let it just come to cook. When it's done, I'm going to throw it in the strainer and let it dry, and then we'll pick it up again from there. Okay, I lightly steamed my cauliflower and my corn. I let it rinse in the strainer, or let it drain in the strainer, and I left it there about an hour. I've been goofing around or whatever, to let it thoroughly dry out. And you want it to be thoroughly dried out because now we're going to mix other ingredients to it and bake it in the oven. And when we do that, we don't want wet, soggy vegetables to water our ingredients down. I wanted to, while I was off for an hour doing other things, I went down a serious rabbit hole. I wanted, because with this whole meal plan thing, I'm looking at ways to, and I'm hoping to show you ways that you can, feed your family and carve off things for yourself. And so just quick recap, on the Birria, there was a little bit of discrepancy on what I was finding on the calorie value of the ribs versus, my lean cut pork. So, the calories saved on the meat is varying anywhere from 129 less on my plate using a different cut of meat to 337 less on my plate. So we'll figure that out, before I played it and end the video. But the rice as well that we made, there was 172 calories saved on my plate by using the cauliflower rice versus the regular Mexican rice made with long grain white rice. So right now on my plate, with my imaginary plate, it's still cooking, with my birria and my Mexican rice, I'm looking at 300 to 500 calories saved over the plates that I'm going to be serving for my family. So I've already dropped that much. Now, the baked elote. Before we get started on, I have it in 2 bowls because I'm going to make it the way I used to make it for myself, even for my family. But I'm going to make it side by side for myself as well with the new way that I'm making it now that I'm on a calorie deficit. So we can see, the difference in calories, my previous recipe and how I'm doing it now. Before we get into that, though, I want to point out that elote typically does not contain cauliflower. But by bulking it up with some cauliflower, I took notes on all this, so I hope you don't mind me. I want to make sure I had all my my numbers right. Yeah. Okay. So corn, the caloric value of a cup of corn is 160 calories per cup. So let's just say we were making this elote dish and we were going to serve 1 cup of the elote or whatever baked on your plate. You would be starting out with just the base ingredient, the corn, being 160 calories within that 1 cup. In contrast, though, a cup of cauliflower is 27 calories. So you're by adding the cauliflower to the total recipe, we're able to bump up the volume that you can put on your plate and bring your calories down. And so if I can read through my notes here over all the mathy stuff that I did way down deep in the rabbit hole, it comes out just at this phase alone by bumping it up with cauliflower. I'm reducing the calorie content on my plate, assuming I'll have a 1 cup serving, by 100 calories just by adding the cauliflower and not having straight corn. Okay, so there's that 1 bump up. I want to first introduce you to, well, we'll do a side by side here. Who doesn't love Best Foods, right? Okay. Best Foods mayonnaise comes in at a total of 90 calories per tablespoon, right? Okay, yes, right. I want to make sure I'm checking my facts. This recipe is going to call for a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise well, okay. I broke off 1/3 of the portion here and 2/3 here. So they're going to get double the volume of each ingredient that I'm getting because I've only got a 1/3 portion. They've got a 2/3 portion. There's more of them than there is of me. And each bowl breaks down to four servings. Well, 4 servings for mine, 8 for them, because there's more of them than there are of me. But anyway, so, okay, so 1/4 cup. If we were to do it value for value, there's going to be a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt mayonnaise in mine. And I personally think that I have perfected Greek yogurt mayonnaise. There's a lot of recipes out there for mayonnaise substitutes, a lot of Greek yogurt based ones, tofu based ones, things like that. This one is a Greek yogurt based. I've tried them all. The other recipes I could find, I look for the ones with the most stars and the most people reviewed, and all those things. I mastered it, trust me. Anyway, so the Greek yogurt mayo is on my YouTube for the recipe. I'm going to be using, what was this measurement? It was a 1/4 cup, and I've already pre-measured mine. So a 1/4 cup of my Greek yogurt comes in at 120 calories, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do my 120 calories of Greek yogurt into my smaller bowl with my cauliflower rice. Now for them, a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup, because they've got double the volume that I have. They're double the people, well, they're triple, quadruple the people, but so we're using a 1/2 cup of theirs and a 1/2 cup. Okay, mine was 120. On 1/4 cup for 1/4 cup value, mine was 120. Mayonnaise would be 360. Okay, so that in itself is 240 calories shaved off of this recipe already. Substituting the mayonnaise, add that to the 100 calories that was shaved off by bumping up the volume by adding cauliflower. And we are currently at 340 calories saved on this dish for me. Okay, so there's their mayo. Next calorie saving. Cheese. Okay, the street corn has cheese. I do not have the Mexican crumbling cheese. So I'm going to use just the Fiesta blend. It's fine. And you can also use whatever it is that you have. Typically, like when you make anything, an enchilada or, anything of that nature, you mix a little cheese in with the filling and it helps to kind of bind it and, things like that. When you're trying to do calorie deficit, it really pays off in the end to minimize the cheese that's going to go into a filling and things like that, and instead reserve it for the top. Because when you put it on the top, well, first of all, cheese is a high calorie food, and when you put it on top, you really get that melty, crispy, browned surface and feel of it being very, very cheesy. Whereas if it's mixed in with the ingredients, it's going to get quite lost, and it'll be calories lost. So for their recipe and the way that I used to make it myself, 1/4 cup, boom, there you go. 1/4 cup being, let me see. I'm sorry, I'm not finding the right value on it. I'll come back to that later. For mine, let me actually see. Is this a 1/4 cup? No, this is a 1/3 cup. I apologize. 1/3 cup, 110 calories. I was wondering why I didn't have that prepped. Okay, 1/3 cup in theirs into the center. And then for mine, I'm going to use just a total of a 1/3 cup for the center and the topping. So they've got a 1/3 cup mixed in to make them cheesy and good and ooey. I'm going to take a 1/3 cup of mine, and I'm going to just use some of it. just enough to kind of bind it, you know, and but I'm going to reserve the majority of mine for the top. And we're ready to go into our baking dishes now. Easy, right? Easy peasy. I have, mine's a little smaller because I'm one person eating my Greek yogurt stuff, and they're three to four people, depending on who shows up, eating their mayo stuff. I'm gonna get a bit of light spray because this will stick, you know, with the mayonnaise and the cheese and stuff like that. So, little light spray. Here's mine. Now let's get theirs. They've got a little bigger dish because there's more of them again. Okay, give that a little spray. And here is, whoops, here is theirs. Because mine's I think a shallower dish at the bottom. It's a curved shape, whereas theirs is flat. Mine actually looks like it's a bigger volume than theirs, being a wide base baking dish. But mine is actually weighed and measured at a third of the portion of theirs, which would give me another rabbit hole to go down on visual appeal and plating, you know, how to plate to make yourself feel like you're eating a big volume of food when it's really, you know, whatever. So, okay, mine and theirs. Okay, I had my 1/3 cup of cheese that I took a little off to put on the inside here. I'm going to go ahead and finish off the top of mine with this 1/3 cup of cheese. Ooh, this is actually quite a generous cheesy top that it's able to put on here. Then I'm going to finish theirs with their second 1/3 cup of cheese, so that their recipe actually has a total of 2/3 cups of cheese in it, because everybody loves cheese, right? Everybody loves cheese. Okay, here we go. And then, okay, cheese all done. And then I'm just going to hit it, both of them, with a little bit of chili powder. And it's going to be like the paprika on a deviled egg. It just gives it that little nice, it is an ingredient on street corn, elote. After they put the cheese on, they give it a light dusting with chili powder. Typically you would use tahine, which is a chili lime seasoning mix, but my son had mangoes in his lunchbox today, and he took the bottle of tahine with him. So the tahine is not in the house. The tahine has left the house. Anyway, so that's it. Let me bring them up closer so you can take a look. I'm going to pop these in the oven, 375, just long enough to melt and brown the cheese, and I'll come back when they're done. Okay, I'm back. The elote bake is still in the oven. It's just got a couple more minutes, but my crock pot reached its time and beeped and was ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unplug it. And what I'm going to do, the ribs, I poked around at them a little bit. They look tender and moist, almost ready to fall off the bone, but not quite falling off just yet. My lean cuts also, I squished them a little bit, and they're nice and juicy tender. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull from the bottom because I want them all to have a nice coating before I put them, of the sauce, before I put them into the oven. And that way the ones from the top will fall back to the bottom again and get a nice coating. And oops, there's the oven. Let me grab my elote bake. Okay, the elote, oh my goodness. The elote bake is done. This is theirs. It's sizzling. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is sizzling and it looks delicious. This really is, you have to try this dish. This is a really, really good Mexican vegetable side dish if you're doing any kind of Mexican dish, enchilada or anything. It's a good dish. Anyway, this one is mine. This is the lower calorie. Ooh, I don't know if you can hear the sizzling on my mic, but it just sizzled and slid a little bit in the dish when I held it up there. This one's mine. Let me finish getting these ribs out. And the oven, so let me bump up the oven to 425. Okay. It was at 375 for the elote. I'm going to go 425. Oh, look at that one's the bone's falling out. The bone just fell out. I'm going to go 425 on these. And what I'm going to do here by plopping them in the oven is just give them a nice caramelizing sear and a nice little bark here and there to their surface. Oops. It's a wonder I've gotten through the day in a white dress. Anybody notice that? Working with a red sauce, Birria, that I know I don't pronounce correctly. There we go. That was the last of my ribs. So, popping these in the oven, 425. 10 minutes flip, 10 minutes flip, baste in between, and meanwhile I'll be separating the fat and creating the sauce. Well, not creating the sauce, just separating the fat, and the sauce is already created for them to dip their tortillas in, Birria style. Okay, one little extra unplanned add-in. If you do not have a grease strainer pouring cup with the little spout, the lower spout that allows you to pour out the broth while the grease stays on top, or if you have one and it grew legs and walked away like mine did, here's how you can get the grease off of sauces and things that you've cooked meats in. You want to find the tallest, thinnest container that you can and transfer your sauce into that. I'm just using a leftover soup takeout container. And the reason why you want it to be tall and narrow is because you want to fit all of your sauce in there, but you want it to have as little top surface as possible, because the top surface is where the grease is going to be. The grease floats, right? And so by doing it in a narrow container, you're creating the thickest layer of grease possible at the top, making it easier to scoop. And then it becomes the just drudgery work of very carefully skimming the top to get the grease off. If you have more time, you could put this in the fridge and the grease would actually harden. And that's actually the best way to get it all off, and make sure you're getting every bit, because it'll form a hard layer. You can break that hard layer out, throw it in the garbage, and what you're left with underneath is your wonderful sauce, grease-free. Once you've gotten to a certain level of skimming the oil off the top, and the way that I'm doing it is I'm just pushing my cup down in there enough to allow the grease to pour in, but I'm not pushing it down so far so that it's catching the broth underneath. But once you get it down to a certain level of thinness, it becomes unavoidable to start picking up the broth too, and then you're not really being effective in what you're doing anymore. Pardon the clank. When it gets to that point, another way to do it is to just take a paper towel. This can get a little messy. Let me grab my hand towel. I'm wearing white. Fingers crossed I haven't messed it up so far. But just take your paper towel and just let it fall onto the surface gently. Don't push it in, just gently onto the surface. And you'll see that the towel will just start absorbing the grease. And you just keep doing that with, clean section of towel, trying to get it in so that you're not dipping down into the broth, but just staying on the surface of the sauce and picking up as much of the grease as you can that way into the paper towel and off of your plate. I believe oil in general is 90 calories a tablespoon or so, or a teaspoon. I don't know. but it adds up and it's not good for your health. So with these tips and a little patience, hopefully you can get all the oil off. That being said, I think I've got mine pretty well skimmed, and my birria is ready to come out of the oven. So I'm going to pull that out while you're here. We'll take a peek. Ooh, look at that. Oh, delicious. Perfect. See if I can do this again without ruining the dress. And there you have it. Pork birria ribs with the birria sauce that I'll put in a prettier container. 2 types of side dishes, the elote bake and the Mexican rice, done 2 different ways to meet 2 types of calorie requirements. I'll recount the calorie counts and the amount saved as soon as I get myself plated up. There we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to a 282 calorie plate. I'm not kidding, 282 calories. The substitutes that I made, I shaved 337 calories off by choosing a leaner cut of meat. I shaved 172 calories off by substituting cauliflower rice for standard Mexican rice. I shaved 405 calories off of the baked elote casserole by limiting the cheese, substituting the Greek yogurt mayonnaise for typical mayonnaise. And that the 405 calories shaved off doesn't even include the additional 100 calories shaved off by bulking up the volume with a lesser calorie expensive vegetable like cauliflower versus the corn. So the total with all these swaps, I'm saving 1,014 calories off of my plate. Again, the whole plate is 282 calories. So this would have been a 1,300 calorie plate. I'm on a 1,200 calorie a day deficit diet. 300 calories is the perfect target per meal for 3 meals a day, allowing room for snacks and urges and impulses here and there. And I've said it a million times before, when I tell people I'm doing a 1,200 calorie deficit diet, they ask, aren't you hungry all the time? You want to eat with me? Would you be hungry? This meal has, let me give you the stats, 26.6 grams of protein, 18.7 grams of carbs, and 8.9 grams of fat. And I am so excited to dig in that I actually pre-cut a piece of meat so that I could try it in front of you, because the house smells wonderful. I'm so excited. That was a big piece, but if you can eat like this, you can stick to a 1,200 calorie a day deficit diet. No sweat.